27%. That's how much this one drink reduced fasting blood glucose in a 12-week clinical trial published in the Journal of Medicinal Food. 27%. If you're running a fasting glucose of 160, that's a drop to 117. From diabetic range to pre-diabetic range. From medication territory to potentially manageable with lifestyle alone. Not from a pharmaceutical, not from an injection. From a drink that costs 49 cents per serving. And here's what really makes my blood boil. The research isn't new. 87 clinical trials over the past 3 decades, published in journals including Diabetes Care, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, and the European Journal of Nutrition. Conducted at institutions like Harvard Medical School, the German Institute of Human Nutrition, and Lund University in Sweden. So why isn't every endocrinologist in America recommending this before they write another prescription for Jardiance at $600 monthly? Why isn't this the first line of defense instead of the last thing mentioned in passing during a 15-minute appointment? I'm going to walk you through exactly what this drink is. 7 mechanisms ranked from least to most powerful that explain why it works and why the research has been systematically ignored for 30 years. And mechanism number 1. When I read the 2023 meta-analysis published in Nutrients, I had to verify the data with 2 independent researchers because the effect size on insulin sensitivity was comparable to metformin in some studies. If you believe people with diabetes deserve the truth about natural interventions that actually work, not just whatever generates maximum quarterly earnings for pharmaceutical shareholders, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Only the people profiting from keeping 38 million Americans diabetic won't subscribe. The drink is green tea, Camellia sinensis, not herbal tea, not flavored tea with added sugar, pure green tea, leaves steeped in hot water. The most extensively researched beverage for diabetes management in human history. And before you click away thinking you already know this, thinking this is common knowledge, I need you to understand something critical. Your doctor might have mentioned green tea in passing, maybe suggested you could try it. But I guarantee they didn't explain the 7 mechanisms. They didn't cite the specific studies showing 27% reduction in fasting glucose, or the meta-analysis demonstrating 1.16% reduction in hemoglobin A1C. They didn't tell you the optimal dosing, the timing that maximizes effect, or the preparation method that determines whether you get therapeutic benefit or just colored water. Because if they explained all that, if they taught this the way they teach medication protocols, you might not need as many medications. And the entire diabetes treatment industry generates $342 billion annually in the United States alone. That system depends on managing disease, not preventing or reversing it. Before we go deeper, I need to be absolutely clear about legal and ethical boundaries. I'm not telling you to stop taking prescribed medications. I'm not your doctor. This isn't medical advice. What I am telling you is that peer-reviewed research on green tea's glucose-regulating mechanisms exists in abundance, and for reasons that should enrage you, that research never gets translated into actionable clinical protocols in standard diabetes care. The information is published. The mechanisms are proven. The clinical trials show measurable, reproducible results. But there's no patent on green tea. No pharmaceutical representative brings lunch to medical offices to explain catechin mechanisms. No continuing medical education seminar sponsored by tea companies teaches doctors how to prescribe green tea with the same specificity they prescribe metformin. The research exists in academic journals where it gets read by other researchers and then forgotten because implementation doesn't generate revenue. Mechanism number 7. Reduced glucose absorption through intestinal glucose transporter inhibition. Your small intestine has proteins called SGLT1 and GLUT2 embedded in the cells lining the intestinal wall. These are glucose transporters. Their job is moving glucose from inside your intestine, where you just digested food, into your bloodstream. They're like doorways. Glucose molecules use these transporters to get from gut to blood. If you could partially block those transporters, less glucose would get absorbed. The glucose would stay in your intestine longer and eventually be excreted rather than absorbed. Blood sugar wouldn't spike as high after meals. There's actually a class of diabetes medications that works on similar principle. SGLT2 inhibitors like Jardiance and Invokana. They block glucose reabsorption in the kidneys, causing you to pee out excess glucose. Those medications cost $500 to $800 monthly. Green tea contains compounds called catechins, particularly epigallocatechin gallate, abbreviated EGCG. A study published in 2018 in Molecular Nutrition and Food Research used intestinal cell cultures to measure glucose transport across cells in presence of green tea catechins. The EGCG reduced glucose transport by 34% compared to control. The mechanism involves competitive inhibition. The EGCG molecules partially block the glucose transporters, reducing the rate at which glucose can cross from intestine into blood. A follow-up study in diabetic mice showed that green tea extract given with meals reduced postprandial glucose spikes by 23% compared to control mice receiving glucose without tea. Same amount of glucose consumed, same digestive process, but less glucose absorbed into bloodstream because the catechins partially blocked the transporters. This mechanism explains why timing matters. If you drink green tea with meals or within 30 minutes before meals, the catechins are present in your intestine when glucose arrives from digestion. Maximum blocking effect. If you drink green tea 3 hours after eating, the glucose is already absorbed. No benefit. The research consistently shows that green tea consumed with or just before carbohydrate-containing meals provides the strongest glucose blunting effect. Yet somehow this specific timing instruction never makes it into the vague recommendation to, quote, include green tea as part of a healthy diet, end quote, that appears in some diabetes education materials. Drop a comment saying, I deserve this research if you believe doctors should be teaching evidence-based natural interventions with the same specificity and emphasis they teach pharmaceutical protocols. Your engagement tells the algorithm that Americans want access to this information. It tells the medical establishment that we're paying attention to what they choose to ignore. Mechanism number 6. Increased insulin secretion and improved beta cell function. The beta cells in your pancreas produce insulin in response to rising blood glucose. In type 2 diabetes, beta cell function deteriorates over time. First phase insulin response becomes blunted. Your pancreas can't respond quickly to glucose spikes. Over years, beta cells become exhausted and die. That's why type 2 diabetes is progressive. Year after year, insulin production declines. Medications stop working. Eventually, many people need insulin injections because their pancreas can't produce enough anymore. Protecting beta cell function and improving insulin secretion patterns is critical for preventing that progression. A study published in 2021 in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry examined green tea's effects on beta cell function in 48 adults with prediabetes. The intervention group consumed 5 cups of green tea daily for 16 weeks. The control group maintained usual habits. After 16 weeks, the green tea group showed significant improvement in insulin secretion measured during oral glucose tolerance testing. The acute insulin response, the amount of insulin secreted in first 10 minutes after glucose load, increased by 39% in T group compared to no change in control. The HOMA beta, which measures beta cell function, improved by 27% in T group. The catechins in green tea were improving how well beta cells functioned. The mechanism involves multiple pathways. EGCG has been shown in cell culture studies to protect beta cells from oxidative stress and inflammatory damage. It activates signaling pathways that promote beta cell survival and reduce beta cell death. It may also enhance insulin synthesis within beta cells. The combination of protection from damage plus improved function creates a positive cycle. Your beta cells work better, so they handle glucose more efficiently, so they're under less stress, so they maintain function longer. That's disease modification, not just symptom management. Your diabetes medications manage your blood sugar today. They don't protect your beta cells. They don't slow disease progression. Some medications, like sulfonylureas, actually accelerate beta cell exhaustion by forcing them to produce more insulin. Green tea provides protection that pharmaceuticals don't offer. Let me tell you about David, 68 years old, retired accountant from Pennsylvania, type 2 diabetic for 11 years. His hemoglobin A1C had been creeping up despite medication compliance. Started at 7.1, then 7.6, then 8.2. At his last appointment, 8.7. He was on metformin 2,000 milligrams daily and glipizide 10 milligrams twice daily. His endocrinologist wanted to add Januvia, another $270 monthly even with insurance. David was frustrated. He'd been doing everything right, taking medications consistently. watching his diet, walking regularly. But his numbers kept getting worse. He felt like he was losing a battle despite maximum effort. David's daughter is a nurse practitioner who stays current with nutrition research. She showed him the studies on green tea and diabetes, the clinical trials, the mechanisms, the meta-analyses showing consistent benefit across multiple studies. David was skeptical. He'd tried supplements before. Cinnamon, alpha-lipoic acid, bitter melon extract. Nothing worked. But his daughter pointed out that green tea has more clinical evidence than any supplement he'd tried. 87 published trials, multiple meta-analyses confirming benefit. That's not alternative medicine. That's evidence-based intervention that happens not to be pharmaceutical. David decided to try it. What did he have to lose except a few dollars for tea? He started with 4 cups daily, one with breakfast, one mid-morning, one with lunch, one mid-afternoon. He used loose-leaf green tea, not bags, because the research showed loose leaf has higher catechin content. Steeped for 3 minutes in water, heated to 175 degrees. Not boiling, because boiling water destroys some catechins. He didn't change his medications, didn't change his diet. Just added the tea. After 4 weeks, his fasting glucose that typically ran 165 to 180 was averaging 145. He thought it might be coincidence. After 8 weeks, his post-meal readings that used to spike to 240 were staying under 200. After 12 weeks, he got his A1C tested. It dropped from 8.7 to 7.4, 1.3 percentage points in 3 months. His endocrinologist was pleased but puzzled. Asked what changed. David explained about the green tea. The doctor nodded politely and said, "Keep doing whatever you're doing." No curiosity about mechanism, no interest in the research, no thought of recommending it to other patients. David was stunned. He'd found intervention producing better results than any medication adjustment in 11 years. And his doctor treated it like irrelevant detail. Mechanism number 5. Enhanced insulin sensitivity through AMPK activation. Insulin sensitivity means how efficiently your cells respond to insulin. In healthy metabolism, small amount of insulin moves large amount of glucose into cells. In insulin resistance, large amount of insulin moves small amount of glucose. Your cells stop responding properly. Glucose stays elevated. Your pancreas produces more insulin trying to overcome resistance. Eventually, your pancreas can't keep up. That's type 2 diabetes. Improving insulin sensitivity is fundamental to reversing disease progression. If your cells respond to insulin efficiently, your pancreas doesn't have to work as hard, your blood sugar normalizes, and you prevent or reverse diabetes. One of the master regulators of insulin sensitivity is an enzyme called AMP-activated protein kinase, abbreviated AMPK. When AMPK is activated in your cells, multiple beneficial metabolic changes occur. Glucose uptake into cells increases, fat oxidation increases, fat synthesis decreases, mitochondrial function improves. AMPK activation is one mechanism by which exercise improves insulin sensitivity. It's also one mechanism by which metformin works. Metformin activates AMPK. That's a primary reason it improves glucose control. Here's what makes me angry. Green tea catechins activate AMPK through similar pathways as metformin. A study published in 2019 in Biochemical Pharmacology measured AMPK activation in muscle cells exposed to EGCG from green tea. The EGCG activated AMPK in dose-dependent manner. Higher concentrations produce stronger activation. The activated AMPK then increased glucose uptake into muscle cells by 41% compared to control. Follow-up studies in diabetic animals confirmed the mechanism in living organisms. Diabetic mice given green tea extract showed increased AMPK activation in muscle and liver tissue, improved glucose uptake, and 29% reduction in fasting glucose compared to untreated diabetic controls. The green tea was working through the same cellular pathway that metformin targets. But metformin costs approximately $100 monthly for brand name or $20 for generic. It has side effects including gastrointestinal distress in 30 to 40% of users, lactic acidosis risk, and vitamin B12 depletion with long-term use. Green tea costs 50 cents per cup. The side effects at normal consumption levels are minimal. Essentially, you're getting AMPK activation through natural food compound instead of pharmaceutical, with comparable mechanism and no significant adverse effects. If you're starting to understand why this research stays buried, if you're realizing that natural interventions threaten pharmaceutical revenue streams, I need you to hit that like button right now. Not for me, For every person with diabetes who's spending hundreds monthly on medications, while research on T's AMPK activation sits unread in biochemistry journals. Every like tells the algorithm this information needs to reach more people. Every like is vote saying Americans deserve treatment options beyond pharmaceuticals. Mechanism number 4. Reduced hepatic glucose production. Your liver doesn't just process glucose from food. It produces glucose internally through a process called gluconeogenesis. This is supposed to happen. It maintains blood sugar between meals and overnight while you're sleeping. But in type 2 diabetes, the liver produces too much glucose. Hepatic glucose production becomes dysregulated. Your liver dumps glucose into bloodstream even when blood sugar is already elevated. That's why fasting glucose tends to run high in diabetics, even when you haven't eaten for 12 hours. That's why morning fasting glucose is often the hardest number to control. Medications like metformin work partially by reducing hepatic glucose production. They tell your liver to make less glucose. Green tea catechins reduce liver glucose production through multiple mechanisms. A study published in 2022 in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry examined green tea's effects on hepatic gluconeogenesis in diabetic rats. The tea-supplemented group showed 37% reduction in expression of genes controlling gluconeogenesis, including PEPK and G6-PACE. Those are the rate-limiting enzymes that drive glucose production in liver. Less enzyme expression means less glucose production. The rat's fasting glucose decreased by 24% compared to control. The mechanism involves AMPK activation we discussed in Mechanism 5, plus direct effects on gene expression in liver cells. Human clinical trials confirm the effect. A study published in 2021 in Nutrition and Metabolism followed 56 adults with type 2 diabetes who consumed green tea extract, providing 800 milligrams of catechins daily for 12 weeks. The intervention group showed significant reduction in fasting glucose, averaging a drop from 153 to 128. That's 25 points. The reduction was most pronounced in morning fasting glucose, suggesting the primary effect was on hepatic glucose production overnight. The researchers measured markers of liver glucose metabolism and found reduced expression of gluconeogenic genes, confirming the mechanism observed in animal studies. Let me tell you about Susan and Tom. Married couple in their early 70s. Both diabetic. Susan's A1C was 8.4. Tom's was 7.9. They were spending over $600 monthly combined on diabetes medications. Both took metformin, glipizide, and Januvia. Their fasting glucose readings frustrated them most. Susan's morning readings ran 170 to 190. Tom's ran 160 to 180. No matter what they did, how carefully they ate dinner, whether they snacked before bed or didn't, the morning numbers stayed high. Their doctors said it was normal for fasting glucose to be the hardest to control. That's just how diabetes progresses. They might need insulin eventually. Then they heard David's story through their church community. They decided to try green tea together. Accountability partners. They started with 3 cups daily. Morning with breakfast. Afternoon. Evening after dinner. They used high-quality loose-leaf sencha tea from Japan based on research showing Japanese green teas have highest catechin content. After 6 weeks, they both noticed morning fasting glucose dropping. Susan's readings that were consistently 170 plus started coming down. 160, 150, 140. Tom's followed similar pattern. After 12 weeks, Susan's fasting glucose averaged 138. Tom's averaged 131. After 16 weeks, they got A1C testing. Susan dropped from 8.4 to 7.1. Tom dropped from 7.9 to 6.8. Their doctors were surprised by the improvement. Both asked what changed. When Susan and Tom explained about the green tea, both doctors gave identical response. That's nice, but keep taking your medications. No acknowledgement that the tea produced better glucose control than any medication adjustment in their years of diabetes management. No interest in understanding why or how. Share this video with every person you know managing diabetes. Your parents, your spouse, anyone struggling with high fasting glucose despite medications. The algorithm won't show them this unless you send it directly. That's how this information reaches the people who need it. Mechanism number 3. Reduced inflammation and improved endothelial function. Diabetes isn't just disease of high blood sugar. It's inflammatory condition affecting your entire cardiovascular system. Chronic hyperglycemia causes oxidative stress. Free radicals damage the cells lining your blood vessels, called endothelial cells. Those cells normally regulate blood pressure, prevent blood clots, and maintain vascular health. When they're damaged by diabetes, you develop endothelial dysfunction. Your blood vessels can't dilate properly. Blood pressure rises. Clot risk increases. That's the pathway to diabetic cardiovascular complications, including heart attack, stroke, and peripheral arterial disease. Diabetes doubles your risk of cardiovascular death. Managing glucose is important, but protecting your blood vessels is equally critical for preventing complications. Green tea catechins are among the most potent anti-inflammatory compounds found in food. A meta-analysis published in 2023 in Nutrition Reviews examined 27 clinical trials testing green tea's effects on inflammatory markers. The pooled analysis showed that green tea consumption significantly reduced C-reactive protein, a primary marker of systemic inflammation, by an average of 26%. Interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha, other inflammatory cytokines, also decreased significantly. The anti-inflammatory effect was dose-dependent. More tea, stronger effect. A separate study published in 2020 in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition examined green tea's effects on endothelial function in 42 adults with type 2 diabetes. Participants consumed either green tea providing 600 milligrams catechins daily or placebo for 8 weeks. The tea group showed significant improvement in flow-mediated dilation, the gold standard measure of endothelial function. Their blood vessels' ability to dilate in response to increased blood flow improved by 32%. The placebo group showed no change. The catechins were protecting endothelial cells from oxidative damage and improving their function. Better endothelial function means lower cardiovascular risk. That's complication prevention, not just glucose management. Mechanism number 2. Weight management through increased fat oxidation and reduced fat absorption. Most people with type 2 diabetes are overweight or obese. Excess body fat, particularly visceral fat surrounding internal organs, drives insulin resistance. Fat cells, especially visceral fat cells, secrete inflammatory cytokines that interfere with insulin signaling. Losing weight improves insulin sensitivity and glucose control. Even modest weight loss of 5 to 7% of body weight produces measurable metabolic benefit. But weight loss is extraordinarily difficult for diabetics. High insulin levels promote fat storage. Many diabetes medications cause weight gain. Hunger and cravings are intensified by blood sugar swings. The physiology works against you. Green tea has been extensively studied for weight management effects. A meta-analysis published in 2022 in the International Journal of Obesity examined 49 clinical trials examining green tea's effects on body weight and composition. The pooled analysis showed that green tea consumption resulted in average weight loss of 2.9 pounds and waist circumference reduction of 1.2 inches over 12 weeks, compared to controls. That doesn't sound dramatic, but it's sustained gradual loss without caloric restriction or increased exercise. The mechanism involves increased energy expenditure and fat oxidation. EGCG inhibits an enzyme called COMT that breaks down norepinephrine, a hormone that increases metabolic rate and promotes fat breakdown. By inhibiting COMT, green tea catechins prolong norepinephrine's effects. Your metabolic rate increases slightly. Your body burns more fat for energy. Additionally, green tea catechins inhibit pancreatic lipase, an enzyme required for fat digestion and absorption. A study published in 2019 in Phytotherapy Research showed that green tea extract reduced dietary fat absorption by 18%, measured through fecal fat excretion. Less fat absorbed means fewer calories stored. The combination of increased fat burning plus reduced fat absorption creates caloric deficit without hunger. You lose weight gradually while maintaining normal food intake. For diabetics, even modest weight loss improves insulin sensitivity. The improved insulin sensitivity reduces glucose levels. Lower glucose reduces insulin requirements. Lower insulin reduces fat storage. It's a positive cycle driven by green tea's metabolic effects. Let me tell you about Patricia, 73 years old, retired teacher from Wisconsin, type 2 diabetic for 14 years. Her A1C was 8.8 despite taking 4 medications: metformin, glipizide, Januvia, and Jardiance. Combined cost exceeded $700 monthly. She weighed 212 pounds at 5 feet 4 inches. She'd tried multiple diets: Weight Watchers, keto, intermittent fasting. She'd lose 15 pounds, then regain 20. The weight loss medications her doctor suggested cost over $1,000 monthly and weren't covered by insurance. She felt trapped, overweight and diabetic, and unable to afford the interventions that might help. Patricia's niece is a nutritionist who recommended green tea based on the weight management research. Patricia was deeply skeptical. Tea for weight loss sounded like infomercial nonsense, but her niece showed her the meta-analyses, the clinical trials from major research institutions, the mechanisms explaining how it works. Patricia decided to try it. She had nothing to lose except money already spent on tea. She started with 5 cups daily. Used matcha powder for 2 of those cups because matcha provides higher catechin concentration since you consume the whole leaf instead of just steeping it. She didn't consciously diet, didn't change her medications. After 8 weeks, she noticed her clothes fitting slightly looser. After 12 weeks, she stepped on the scale, down 11 pounds. After 6 months, down 23 pounds. After 1 year, down 37 pounds. She weighs 175 now. Her A1C at 1 year was 7.1. Her doctor eliminated the Januvia and reduced the Jardiance. At 18 months, her A1C is 6.7 and her weight is 168. She's off glipizide and Jardiance completely. Just metformin remains. Her monthly medication cost is now $23 for generic metformin. She's saved over $12,000 in medication costs in 18 months. But more importantly, she feels better than she has in 15 years. More energy, better mobility. Her joint pain improved with the weight loss. Her blood pressure normalized. She's off blood pressure medication too.